Decades later, the story happened again. Not on television now, but at the Royal Festival Hall. It was full of people who existed because of one man. The legacy that filled the room. Join me for the final episode that tells the true story of how Nicholas Winton's heroic story went from a TV studio to its premiere as the film One Life.
So unfortunately, Esther couldn't go to the premiere. Also unfortunate, it was during the actors' strike. And
oh my goodness.
Helena Bonham Carter and Anthony Hopkins weren't there. But her tickets were given to me, Richard, Katinka and Mike Parecki, who strangely enough all have Jewish roots, but that was just, how it
coincidence happened. Yes.
And we walked in, it was at the British Film Institute, and we entered the red carpet, which is always terribly exciting, right? And, you have a whole bank of journalists, and it's just as you see it is.
You came as honoured guests.
And Richard recognised the woman who greeted us, who was the head of Warner Brothers publicity. She said, "Oh, Richard, what are you doing here?" So he said, "Well, we are the original team from That's Life." What's funny about that is that you could almost see her saying, "Oh my God, you're still alive." Because in people's minds, That's Life was so, 1988 was so long ago, they couldn't, but we were, well, I was older, but we were all, late 20s, 30s. Well, there was pandemonium set out because they had no idea we would be in the audience. And suddenly we are asked to do the reporter run, the news run. So what happens is you stop at every newspaper and they ask you, about your experiences, okay? And, I was the lowly one in this team, okay? Katinka had done all the research, he'd done the production, he'd done the director, but what soundbite did they use in the trailer? They used my soundbite of me saying, "Well, Nicholas said he didn't know what the fuss was about, anybody would have done it." What's equally funny about that is my nephew's son works for Warner's and puts together trailers, and suddenly he's got his aunt has a soundbite. So we go into the theatre, and I have never been in such an emotional situation as when that film started, and quite involuntarily we went to hold each other's hands. Oh, I'm welling up. Anyway, we watched the film, and afterwards James comes out with Seesaw Productions, who were the company who did the King's Speech and the people that were involved. He had a message from Esther, and he said, but he's thrilled to say that the original That's Life team are there. And then, steel myself to tell you this, he did something extraordinary. He said, "Could anybody in the audience who owes their life to Nicholas Winton please stand up?" And 20 90-year-olds stood up. Right?
Wow.
Then he said, "Is there anybody in the audience who owes their existence to Nicholas Winton?" And the rest of the audience stood up.
There was a really important moment at the end of the film. The director came onto the stage and he asked, if there's anyone in the room who is alive today because of Nicholas Winton, could you please stand? And all the people around me stood, including John Fieldsend, who was on that train himself. And you could just feel the audience just recognizing the significance.
So these were the relatives, the spouses, the children. Wow.
Once again, the whole audience. Amazing. Now you have a blubbering wreck. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking on this emotional journey of your history of relationship with Nicholas Winton and That's Life. I am so appreciative of what you've told. I think we're going to have to cut it into various episodes. Pam, once again, thank you so much for letting me take you on your emotional journey, apart from us on our emotional journey. I look forward to speaking to you again because, your son Mark was very much involved with Variety and the Variety Club and all of the shows. And I want to pick up on one particular story, which I always find fascinating when you tell me, and that's about Lionel Richie. Thank you. I look forward to speaking to you again on another occasion about
Thank you.
some of the stars
that day in tears.
I've wasted you completely, so that's great.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.